Hi, it's Dwyer. It's the 5th of June, 2019. Let's talk basketball and betting, but first remember, the opinion you should follow should be your own. Just consider this video to be a second opinion from a complete stranger online. Now, I've been on here talking about my belief that the Golden State Warriors are going to win the NBA championship. Right? I told people that I thought the winner of the Houston Golden State series was going to go on and win the NBA championship. As I make this video, the Warriors have already snatched back home court advantage from the Toronto Raptors in the NBA Finals. But, and it's a big but, understand that the Warriors aren't healthy now. Things have changed. Right? KD is so banged up that he's not going to play in Game 3. Think about that. Well, now you have a banged up Klay Thompson. Right? Klay Thompson looked terrible to me as he motioned to get off the court in Game 2 after he hurt his hamstring. I thought it was interesting that Klay Thompson wasn't on the court in the fourth quarter of Game 2. Folks, that's huge. Then you have Kevin Looney. Now understand, very important member of the Golden State Warriors. He's out there sticking Kawhi Leonard. Right? Looney's above average defensively. At a minimum, he's 6 fouls. He's out for the remainder of the NBA Finals. Key player, right? Boogie Cousins was out there. He looked great in Game 2. But Boogie's out of shape, and it shows, right? This is a guy who was gasping for air. There's a jump ball during the game. It's late in Game 2, where he's jumping against Kawhi Leonard. And Boogie is noticeably huffing and puffing before the ball is thrown in the air. Right? You can't count on Boogie, who to me is one of the best big men in the game, when he's healthy. Right? He's just coming back from injury. You can't count on Boogie to give you 30 solid minutes at this moment in time. So understand, gambling is about probabilities, taking advantage of odds. While I still think the Golden State Warriors win the NBA title, if you have futures money on the Warriors to win this series, I believe you cannot overlook the plus 240 right here to take the Toronto Raptors. Right? I believe you have to consider, to win the series, I believe you have to consider for Game 3, right, the possibility of taking the Raptors on the point spread. Before it was 6.5. Now it's down to 5. I think you need to consider taking Toronto plus 5. Let's go one step further. Let's say the Warriors come out and they win this game. Let's say the home court atmosphere, the first game in Oracle, in the NBA Finals, brings out the fans, brings out the intensity. Boogie Cousins has the adrenaline going. Steph Curry gets hot, hits several threes, has in the high 30s. Right? Let's say Golden State comes out and wins this game. I know it's going to be counterintuitive, but I believe you just have to circle the futures prop for Toronto to win the series. Right? Just taking it as an insurance play, even if Golden State goes up 2-1. In other words, you're getting a plus 240 right now. I believe you need a taste of that in your betting portfolio. Let's say Golden State wins tonight. You need to, in my opinion, put a little bit on Toronto then too. If you're getting a plus 240 now, should Toronto lose game 3, you're going to get probably a plus 400 on Toronto to win the series, right? Against a Golden State team that quite frankly isn't close to being at their best, right? Understand, if KD plays in game 4, and he might not, why isn't he playing in game 3? You mean to tell me this injury is so serious that he misses the end of the Houston series, he misses all of the Portland Trailblazer series, he's now missed the first 3 games of the NBA Finals? How do you know when he comes back he's even going to be effective? Let me go one step further. The Warriors have played guys who have been less than 100%. Boogie Cousins is playing right now. They're talking about playing Clay in game 3. Right? The guy could barely walk off the court. Did not play in the 4th quarter of game 2. You mean to tell me that KD's injury is so bad that the Warriors have already summarily ruled him out of game 3? They're not ruling out Clay with a hamstring problem. He's ruled out of game 3. When he's there game 4, do you think KD is going to have the lungs to play for 30 minutes? Right? KD, even on the court, if he makes it on the court, might be a shell of himself. Let me also say this too. This Toronto team shouldn't be taken lightly. They were down 2-0 against Milwaukee. By the way, at that moment, you could have gotten Toronto at 14-1. 14-1. Right? Think about it. Then they win the last 4 games of that Milwaukee series. The last 4. So my point to you is, this is a tough team. You need to view them as a tough team. Right? I think the point spread, if it's still 5, is too much against a weakened Warrior team for game 3. I think the futures play here, plus 240, is too much, given that there's a fair chance that Toronto beats Golden State in either game 3 or game 4. Right? You don't want to be messing with Toronto. If they go back to the Big North, if they go back to Toronto with home court, if they regain home court, and they're playing on their court in game 5 against a Warrior team that, again, just isn't fully healthy. Understand, too, these games are a lot closer than they look. Curry, at the end of game 2, throws the ball. Kawhi Leonard is there. Right? Had Kawhi grabbed that ball, he would have had a clear shot the other way on a layup to tie the game. But Sean Livingston was also there. So Sean Livingston grabbed the ball, then threw it to Iguodala. Now, there was time left on the clock. Iguodala's out by 3, right? I don't care how disrespected the other team treated him defensively. Iguodala made a mistake. He then takes the 3, right? Shoots the ball. Now, by chance, well, let's just put it this way. The best shooters from 3-point range in the NBA, right, hit that shot less than 45% of the time. Right? I believe Steph Curry's 3-point percentage from this last year is less than 45%. Right? And that's phenomenal, because understand, 33% from 3 equals 50% from 2. Right? So Iguodala, best case, had a less than 40%, because he's not elite from 3 these days. he had a less than 40% chance of making that three-point shot. Right? What that means is that there was a 60% chance that someone was going to get the rebound. Understand, Iguodala left time on the shot clock. Right? If he was going to take the three, why not dribble the ball 2-3 times? Drain the shot clock down to 1 second. Then raise up and take the three-point shot. Right? Understand how scary the finish was in Game 2. Had Iguodala missed that three, had the ball gone out of bounds, it would have been Toronto's ball with about 5 seconds left in the game. Down by 2. Right? Think about that. Had Iggy taken the three, missed it, and Toronto got the rebound, who knows? Maybe the Warriors weren't even in a position to contest a fast break by Toronto, right? Wasn't Kawhi already out by where Sean Livingston was, above the free throw line? So Game 2, even with the great third quarter, was razor close. Again, I think Golden State wins the series. But if the casino's going to give me cheap insurance, a cheap hedge, I'm going to take it. I believe you have that opportunity in Game 3 right now. You can get Toronto plus 240 to win the whole thing. If you want a different kind of hedge, you could take Toronto plus 5 points to win Game 3. In other words, if the Warriors aren't themselves, right? If they're not even as healthy as they were for Game 2, if Klay Thompson's not on the court. And let's be clear here, Klay's such a key part of the Warriors that he was disappointed at not being named to one of the All-NBA teams. If Klay Thompson's not on the court, if Boogie feels the effects of playing extended minutes in Game 2, right? If the Warriors don't quite have it together like they did in Game 2 when even Andre Iguodala is hitting big threes. If Game 3 is close, then you're able to cash your ticket. Right? Just by taking Toronto and getting the 5 points for Game 3. Let's say you're a longer term bettor. Let's say you realize that, wow, even if Toronto, wins this game or Game 4, then you have home court going back to Toronto against a Warrior team that isn't close to 100%. We know Kevin Looney's not coming back the entire series. Right? I mean, understand how preposterous the Warrior situation is. This is like watching the Lakers, where suddenly they tell you from back in the day, they say, oh, by the way, Kareem is missing. Right? Or Magic's missing. If you believe Kevin Durant is the best player on the team or the second best player on the team. Right? This is like the Shaq and Kobe Lakers, where they say, oh, guess what? Shaq's missing this game. Or guess what? Kobe's missing. Right? Now, you're going to take away Klay Thompson. So here's where they tell you, oh, Kareem's missing and James Worthy's missing. Right? All I'm saying is the Warriors are missing so many pieces that the Vegas lines right here don't make sense going into the series. Toronto had the 1 seed. That's why they have home court in the finals, right? Milwaukee had the 1 seed, but Toronto had a higher seed than the Warriors. You mean to tell me that this weakened Warrior team initially was laying 6.5 points for Game 3? Now is laying 5 points for Game 3? You mean to tell me right now I get Toronto at a plus 240 and Toronto's healthy? I know Leonard's not 100%. Leonard's doing a hell of a lot better, quite frankly, than KD is health-wise, isn't he? You mean to tell me that Toronto has Leonard, Gasol, Siakam, Lowry, and they're all able to play in the game, whereas the Warriors don't have KD, don't have Klay Thompson, don't have Kevin Looney, who was sticking Kawhi Leonard, right? Are relying on Boogie Cousins, who, oh, by the way, missed several playoff games, didn't play in the Portland series. My recommendation is just be prepared to hedge, right? I personally am taking the plus 240. I win the most if Golden State wins the whole thing. But I believe in locking in profits. I'm taking the plus 240 on Toronto to win the series right here as an insurance play. In other words, doesn't quite fully insure my Golden State liability, but it cuts it down quite a bit. The flip side is I'm giving up some possible winnings. I'll also be prepared, no matter what the score in Game 3. In other words, if Toronto gets blown out in Game 3, I'll be prepared to put a futures hedge in favor of Toronto before Game 4, because I know the odds will then jump and Toronto will be a plus 400 or a plus 450. That's if they lose Game 3. Right? Just giving some thoughts and some ideas. Use your head here. I believe the market right now, as much as I love the team, is overvaluing the Golden State Warriors. If KD is so hurt that he can't play the first 3 games of the biggest series of the year in the NBA Finals, and if Klay Thompson is so bad off that after he hurt his hammy, you see him going like this to the bench, then he limps off and can't play in the fourth quarter of a NBA Finals game that Golden State needed to take back home court advantage. Right? And if I'm hearing that Kevin Looney has a broken bone, in other words, folks, it's a wrap for him in the series. If Golden State is that hit up, injury-wise, they shouldn't be a 5-point favorite in Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Toronto shouldn't be getting a plus 240 to win the series. That's how I see it. Let me hear from you. I hope you leave your comments for other gamblers and for me in the comment section of this YouTube video. Thanks for stopping by.